Hi, welcome back to Possibilities with Monique de Maio. I'm very excited to have with me a very inspirational and very great woman today. Her name is Dr. Susan Nicholas. She's a physician and former surgeon who, after having a conscious awakening, transitioned her life and founded a conscious media company. Susan is a life transformation guide, quantum energy healer, and an international speaker. Her speaking platform is called The Frequency of Money, where she inspires audiences to positively transform their relationship with money. Susan is a TEDx presenter on money consciousness and overcoming generational poverty. As the founder of the Human Consciousness Consortium Publishing, Dr. Nicholas is the author of 6 books, including The Duality of Being, Two Parts of Me, The Death of Cupcake, and Poor Max Breaks the Cycle of Poverty, due out in 2024. Dr. Nicholas also hosts the Be Conscious podcast and the Money Consciousness Show. Her diverse work has a common thread to awaken humanity to consciousness. Susan's perspectives and works have also been featured in Yahoo Finance, the Associated Press, HuffPost, Authority Magazine, Conscious Life Journal, SWAAY Media, The Native Influence, TEDx, Forbes Books Radio, Fox News, and NBC8 Ask the Doctor. Welcome today.
Thank you so much, Monique. It's my deepest pleasure. I appreciate you.
Thank you. The first question everyone's asking themselves is and I think we didn't even talk about it. You have an MBA, you have an MD, you have certifications up one side, down the other. You are a healer. You are just a transformative human being. How did we get to this place? What was your journey? How did you go from MD to doing the consciousness?
Yeah, I love that question. It's funny because when you're on a journey as convoluted as mine, it seems like you don't understand where your steps have taken you. But when you look out, you're just like, oh, now it makes sense. It's come. I have clarity about it. And so the journey that I took into clinical medicine was my very first career. And I went to medical school, kind of did my residency training out in California, and ended up doing a fellowship in cardiothoracic surgery. That journey was, how would I say it? What I would call an unconscious journey into, or my attempt, I would say, at self-validation. And so it was my outer journey to self-validation, because what preceded that journey was this long feeling of unworthiness, of feeling that I'm not good enough, feeling I have to prove myself as being smart enough, this and that enough. And so that, I would say, intertwined in that is I did believe that being a medical doctor was my purpose. When I was 10 years old, I declared that I would be a doctor, and so it is. And that's what I believe that would be I would call an honorable profession, and a profession that would allow me to have financial security. And so it was like all wrapped up in one. I felt like this was my path, and I went about laying down the path and laying down my future.
Where do you think the notion, everyone walks around with a not enough, as we know. And I talk about that in my book as well, but where do you think your not enough, whether it was intelligent or rich or good enough, came from?
I love this question. At the time that I was pursuing all of my academic and career pursuits, I had no idea where it came from. I just knew that inside of myself, Monique, I felt a sadness, like a very deep, deep sadness. I felt functionally depressed, meaning that I could do lots of things, I could learn things, but at the end of the day, when I'm with myself, I felt sad. And I didn't know why, because it's one of those feelings that I had for so long, I didn't know what it was to be without the sadness. And I liken it to a trusted friend, that the sadness was always with me.
Right.
And so it wasn't until I was doing my clinical fellowship in cardiothoracic surgery that I began to investigate this energy, because I believe that once I achieved, my education, my vocation, then that feeling would lift, and I would feel like finally I made it. The journey was worth it. I'd feel happy all of a sudden, almost like happiness was this dangling carrot that I could only achieve after a certain amount of accomplishments or titles or education or money. And when I came to the point where I was doing more than I had ever set out to do, when I was doing my clinical fellowship in heart surgery, I was like, this wasn't even part of the original dream. And look where I'm landed. And I still felt the sadness. I realized that there was nothing that I could do. And I believe this is true about the lion's share of humanity. There's nothing I could do to fill a soulful void. That was never going to be enough. Like this pursuit of education and titles and money, that was never going to fill what ailed my soul. And so naturally, I became afraid that I could never lift the sadness, no matter what I did or accomplished. And I worked very hard to do all that stuff. That was not an easy journey. And so it was at that time that I tried to take my own life because I didn't know how to relieve that, like the sadness. I felt like I had done everything. And I think about suicidal ideation. I think we don't really want our body to die. Like that's not what it's about. It's we don't want to feel the pain anymore. And so when you go so far on your journey to alleviate the pain and there's nothing that you feel like you can do in your corporal body in the world to do that, then it feels like the only option is to kill yourself, to kill the body out of this life so you don't feel the pain anymore. And so that's where I was as a 36-year-old person, single, pursuing a medical career, a surgical career. And it was this, I believe, what tipped me off into my conscious journey, even though I had no language around it. Because again, very, very much in the left brain and evidence and science and institutionalized in my thinking and belief systems. So I had no language around the realm of spirituality or consciousness. In fact, my intuition, I was learning in my education not to trust it, that I had to go with the facts and evidence. And so I would feel things inside of me, but I was like, well, I better trust the facts or the data or. And so that was I was in that place of learning not to trust myself.
Wow. And do you think the medical community, the traditional Western medicine community, is a little responsible for that mentality?
Yes.
Forget your gut.
Mm-hmm.
That's only your intuition speaking. You're not.
Yeah. Find the evidence for it. And so basically you'd have a feeling and then you'd have to go find the evidence to back up the feeling. It's not just medicine. I think it's in our financial, system and many of our systems where we are taught and I was really conditioned to not trust ourselves.
I think that's true. And I think that's even more true in male dominated industries.
Yeah, and I because I think the power of the divine feminine is often marginalized. We don't want to give credence to the power that's within us. And so we begin to feel like we're powerless and we need all this external validation to validate us, to tell us that who we are, what we're capable of, what we're doing, what we're doing is right or wrong. And so, yeah, I call it the journey of external validation. And that's the journey I was on, like many people. It was a journey to have enough education skills, whatnot, so you can work and pay your bills to survive your embodiment. So it was all about that, survival.
Interesting. It's another friend of mine, Dr. Karen Latimer. She's an MD, family physician, and she wrote 2 books about, raising kids in this despair. She calls it the compare and despair culture, where so much of our lives are spent in the service of what the exterior looks like. Posting the perfect picture with the perfect outfit and the perfect family and the perfect, and not really giving any sort of oxygen to the reality that there are people in this happy, perfect picture who are suffering in such a bad way. But, it's this notion that if I don't look the part, I won't be the part, and so on. And it's just crazy to me.
Yeah, it's kind of like that fake it till you make it mentality, where we have enough resources oftentimes to change the exterior. But what I don't think it's that we don't want to change what's happening inside of us. We just have never learned how to do that. It's all been the focus on the exterior, where we're just one more title, one more degree, one more promotion or amount of money, one more car, house, remodel kitchen, even child. We're just one more thing away from feeling feeling fulfilled, to having it all. Only to recognize that it doesn't. There's no amount of things that can fill a soulful void, like a void of the essence of your being. And we're never taught that. And so it makes sense that many of us embark upon the journey of external validation. To me, it's like, of course you do. That's what we're told to do. That's what we're supported in doing. We're never, ever encouraged to take the journey within. That's usually something that happens after a midlife crisis or some sort of crisis in your life. It doesn't have to be in the middle of your life, where you say you stop all that you've been doing and kind of smell the roses, like stop and just like take inventory of your life. It's almost like the inner journey is forced upon you by some sort of great pain, or great catastrophe. And that's only then when we take that journey within.
Right. It's funny. I have a friend who's she's very snarky, but she always says people don't have perspective, and she'll say, "Oh, they need a little cancer in their lives to get some perspective, or they need somebody to die in their family to get perspective," because it's always this notion of being judgy, right? And you can't be judgy. I think you can't, and I'm learning as I'm getting older that the less and less I try to hold myself back from being as judgy as I know I could be, because you don't know somebody's journey. You don't know where they came from. You don't know what's really going on behind closed doors or any door. And so who are we to judge? And like, do you have any idea what my circumstances are? No, but you've already made the conclusion based on what I look like.
Right, right. Or what I have, maybe the shiny things around me. Yeah. Yeah. So I like what your friend said, like you need a little bit of this or a little bit of that. I think that's usually what it is. It's like we have a diagnosis, we have a big shift. We're fired from our job, our livelihoods, threatened. Maybe our family unit, there's a divorce or some sort, the child, someone dies, there's a problem kid or something like that. An affair, there's something that happens and that causes like almost like upends the facade and tries to crack through the facade to get back to what I call the essence of our being, the duality of our being. And so I like to use this example that was told to me by someone that was on one of my shows, my Money Consciousness show. And he said to me, it's fabled that there was a discussion among the gods as to where to hide the Holy Grail. And the Holy Grail being this journey back to you, this inner journey. Said, well, if, we hide it in the depths of the ocean, those clever humans are sure to find it. And if we hide it in the expanse of the universe, surely they'll develop a technology to reach it. But if we hide it within them, who dare take that journey? And I think this is what we call this inner journey to like self, getting back to the self. Because I would say if you ask 100 people, 101 of them would say, when you say, well, who are you? They'd say, well, they're their job. I'm a banker. I'm a doctor. I'm a marketer. I'm a business person. I'm an artist. Like it's to their profession. That they believe that's who they are. I'm a mother.
Yeah, it's an identity, isn't it?
Yeah. And so it's like, if you had to describe yourself without the labels of profession or money or gender even, who are you? And that's what we never get to. Like it's like a peeling back of the onion and getting to the core. And to me, that's the essence of us. And so when someone asks me, well, who are you? I said, that I'm an energetic being having a human experience. I'm just At the very core of me, I'm pure energy, just like you, just like everybody else. And I was born into a physical embodiment to experience this earth realm. And I believe when it comes down to the core of our essence of being, I call our duality of being, we realize that we all have everything in common. That's what we all have done. That's what we're all on. The only way to get out of here is to die off the planet. And then our spirit goes into from where it came. And we don't have corporal memory of that. Maybe we've had 1,000 existences. And so I believe that this energetic essence of us has a long, infinite thread. And we carry this energy, I believe, in the core of our DNA. This energy not only animates our bodies, it's essential to our beingness. Like we know that the body can persist without the life force of it, but it just crumbles. It goes back to its basic carbon, ash. It crumbles back to ash and degrades back to nothingness, or I won't say nothingness, but down to its basic elements.
So how did an MD become a healer? And then what is it that you do with people when we're talking about generational trauma here that is baked into generational trauma is one of my favorite topics, actually.
Even ancestral. Yeah.
Ancestral. Thank you. Oh my God. I couldn't come up with it. Thank you. Ancestral trauma. So if you could describe to the listeners and the viewers here, what kind of healing modalities are you now grounded in and you help people through these traumas?
So I started out cutting people open as a surgeon and cutting out disease, right? That sounds so horrible. And now, but if we look at the foundations of disease in the body, we're like, well, where does that come from? And to me, I believe for much of what ails us in our physicalness, there's an energetic component to it. Maybe you could call it a spiritual component to it. Now, I'm not talking about the kind of things that happens where I'm in an automobile accident and I've got a laceration or I've got a fracture and that needs to be, set, or that skin needs to be closed, that kind of thing, or infections and those things. But I'm talking about the feelings in us. It's the depressions, maybe the fibromyalgia type of things. Maybe it's the cancer type of things, ulcers, things that the inflammation that is just boiling and boiling and boiling and boiling within. And then it shows up in our body. I'm one of those people that can break out in hives. And so it's like it shows on the outside, like what's going on, what's happening from the inside. And so with my spiritual awakening, I developed, I would say, what was awakened in me was this latent ability to see and move energy, to be able to see the energy, the essence of us, and to manipulate that energetic force, life force. And when I say manipulate it, only for the best and highest good. So I call the realm of light, like the highest frequency, love and light frequency. So, and from that place, I literally can feel the energy of you, of my clients moving through me. And in that exchange is the light or the healing energy. Like it's almost like shining a light on the darkness. Or that energy. And I do it from, someone would say, an alpha or even like a delta state, like a state of awareness that I'm not able to speak in that, but I can telepathically communicate with the soul, like only with the energetic force. This is what I always ask. Whatever we're healing, can it be healed? Like, is this something that energy can heal? And do I need to tell the person, or are they aware of whatever's going on? And so the first question will determine if what is the cancer, let's just use that example, is something for your spiritual evolution on earth. Like, do you need to have this experience for something greater? Okay. So if it's not that, or then this can be healed. Usually it's just one question. I'll ask, can this be healed? And so then there's a second question is, what to make my client aware of. And the answer is always the same. It's that they already know. Now, people may not admit things to themselves. They may not want to know or say it out loud or acknowledge something, but people always know what's going on inside of them. And so sometimes it's just saying the unsaid, like saying to someone to think about XYZ, something that they never spoken the words to, maybe to another living being. And so there's great experiences that my clients will have. Some of them will see their ancestors, old relationships, past life experiences. Some people feel their energy come out. Some people feel light. Some people feel a shade of darkness. Some people feel hot, cold, vibrations. Each person has their own experience. And I've matured in my practice. I've been moving energy. I got my healing attunements in 2015. But over the course of moving energy in this healing way, I've learned a lot where it's not, I don't get to direct this energy. I consider myself a conduit for it. Like I prepare myself to be able to receive this higher life force that I can then kind of transfer. But the healing is actually what you do, like, or my clients do. Every person has the power within them to heal themselves. Everyone does. And just like when we very fundamentally cut ourselves, the body knows how to heal that, right? And so we forget that, and this can happen on a greater scale, like on a cellular level, on a deep cellular level, that the body has the capacity to heal itself. It always has. And so all that I'm really doing is reminding you of that, and providing you almost like the tools to do it. Because sometimes the shroud of energy is so dense, we can't come out of it on our own. Like we literally are at a loss of how to change it or how to transform it. In this case, in the case of energy, we just never learned it. We've never learned it.
No, we haven't. Nor have we been, I think, as a culture, as a society, been given permission to think that these things actually could be okay, right? They're not woo-woo and they're not Satan's work or what. I mean, I think there's a very large population of people who can't reconcile being religious and believing in God and believing in spirituality. I have that. I believe in God and I believe in spirituality and energy. And I think if you try to dismiss one at the expense of the other, that's a conflicting, that's a loaded conversation for a lot of people. It really is. So I have a question. So what kinds of trauma and or triggers would have people come to you as the healer that you are? And then what are you kind of fixing for them? So examples of that.
Sure. I've had, most of my clients are women, and then their children. They bring me their children in my healing practice. And I also do work with animals, more like dogs and horses and things like that. And so I would say most people come in because they know that there's something going on inside of them despite having all their needs met. And so I think this is like a common misconception. This is one that I carried for a very, very long time. I believe the root of the issues that I was having in adulthood could originate back to my childhood, and specifically my childhood of growing up in poverty, like being born into an impoverished circumstance. And so I think, well, if I had the resources, if I had, parents that were more, whatever, capable, if the situation were different, then I would be fine, and that's what I would say. It's just about the fact that I feel like I'm not enough because for so long in my life, I didn't have enough, and so I'd make like a 1-to-1 correlation. Well, what I noticed was particularly when I started seeing young children in my practice, and I'm talking children 5 years old, like young children in my healing practice, Many of the children, they had more than enough resources. They had 2 loving parents. They had private school. They had all the clothes, they weren't hungry. They weren't in a deprived situation. And I was like, wait a second. And they still had their stuff, like their energetic stuff. And I said, oh, a light bulb. I was like, this is a carryover. We come from a long line of energy, and we carry it with us into each embodiment. And so these kids, even though all of their needs are met and they were loved and wanted and all the things, that they too came into an embodiment with a life force that carried with it the energy of the ancestors, things that were unresolved from previous lifetimes. And so I was like, oh, I get it now. I begin to understand. And so that, took me from, I first started writing books for adults. I wrote The Duality of Being, which is very much the perspective of an adult for adults. And then I began writing conscious children's books, recognizing that what if we could, while our children are still awake, while the veil is still translucent over their consciousness, while they still believe in, you could call it, fairies or invisible friends and whatever, and they still can communicate. Many children can communicate with their ancestors still. Why that we allow that capacity, like we don't close it off, like we allow it to actually flourish over their lifetime, and we believe them and we nurture that ability, because most of us can think of a time when we believed one way and then something happened and then we no longer believed it. And to me, that's the opacification of the veil of consciousness, where we're told to grow up, where we're told not to imagine, or not believe in imaginary things, don't believe in fairy tales, don't listen to your heart. These are the facts. This is the truth about life. It's hard. You're going to have to work hard. And by the way, you're not as smart as other kids, or you're not good looking, so you're going to have to rely on these skills, or you're not as strong, you're a weakling. And that all those infractions, I believe, shut us down as energetic beings. And we go into like this robot mode of tasking away, checking all of our boxes, accruing all of our stuff so we feel secure. And so I think that and then it's rinse and repeat. We just do it day after day, month after year, lifetime after lifetime.
And it's like compounded interest, doesn't it? It all adds up until somebody's got to clear that cobweb crap away, right? You got to get rid of this crap.
I love that. Yeah.
I would really love to know what soul level I'm at, based on how many more times I have to come back to learn the lessons that I'm supposed to learn. Because God knows we're all, works in progress. So Conscious Media Company, you have a BHAG, as they call it in the business, right? A big, hairy, audacious goal. That's like, you've never heard that term, BHAG? It's so good. It's so good.
I love it.
Yeah. So in business, we call them BHAGs, this big, hairy, audacious goal. And yours is this elevating of consciousness across the board. So I want you to kind of tell our listeners, what does that look like? What is your ideal state? What are you trying to espouse to people as a philosophy and a modality and a thinking that is not there now?
So I started my conscious journey as far as my works, writing books. And so I was wondering, so am I just am I an author now? Like, what am I? And then I had energy healing, modalities. And like, well, my energy healer, again, I was going back to the labels, but like, I felt like I had to have something concrete. So when someone said, what do you do? I could say, oh yeah, I'm an author. I could have an answer, because there was a time I didn't have one. I was like in this space. I was like, I'm in transition, because everybody wants to hear like just a simple thing. What do you do? And I started to feel insecure, not knowing what I was doing and how it was all fitting together. And so I was like, am I an author? Am I this? I'm that? And then I was like, wait a second. I like kind of took a step back and I said, everything that I'm doing, writing, publishing, broadcasting, podcasting, speaking, creating digital media. I said, this is media. I'm creating conscious media. And I said, like, all the things that I do is part of my conscious media company, like all of it. And that's what I'm growing today, this conscious media, because what most of the media that we consume today is fear-based. It triggers insecurities and fears in us, and it keeps us, I believe, in a lower vibrational state. And we feel like good news doesn't sell or whatever, something like that. But I think that what the issue is, and what doesn't yet exist, is media that is entertaining, but it also nourishes your soul. Like, it touches on the pain points in life, the triggers in life, the energies, the feelings of life. But instead of, I just kill somebody when I feel a certain way, or I drink, you see it. There's stress. There's always something happens. There's stress. And what do the characters do? They come home after their day of work and they pour themselves a stiff drink to calm themselves down to be able to function. Or they're in this state and they're on drugs and they got to take a drug to wake up and some other pill to go back down. And they're just in this cycle of intoxicating themselves. Like, they never really deal with their shit. They never deal with their problems. It's just this ongoing thing of, how can I numb myself? How can I intoxicate myself? How can I distract myself from what's going on inside of me? And I'm thinking, well, what if we looked at it from a more empowering perspective? And I'm talking about media from the first media, black and white, to 2023, the new things. Everybody has there's always a problem. And what do people do? They usually a stiff drink, or they're thinking how they're going to kill the person that triggered the feeling, or they're insecure and they're in scarcity mode. And so they're going to kill you for your diamonds, your money, your whatever, your gold bars or whatever. And it's the same story told over and over and over and over again. And then we wonder why we feel this way. And I think a good example, if you'll allow me, Monique, is horror films.
I really do truly hate horror films. I can't watch them. I cannot watch horror movies. My whole family knows, oh no, turn the channel, mom's going to get all sideways. Yeah.
Exactly. So I feel the same way, because I said, what does it do? Its whole purpose is to disgust you and to make, to trigger fear. That's all that it's meant to do.
And so wait, I want to understand the people that love the feeling of being completely terrorized. I don't understand. Are they like mental?
I don't know the answer to that, but my point is that is what it's designed to do. It has no greater purpose than to disgust you, and to create fear. That's all that's its point. That's the point of it. I say this to my students: why would I want to feel that way? And so then I look at the other types of media. It's always about greed and about not having enough and about scarcity and about insecurity. And I'm like, well, why would I want to feel that way? Why? Like that's the only way. And if you see it enough times, if you get enough impressions, you believe that rich people are evil. And if they had a lot of money, then they had to, do some nefarious shit to get it, or they had to harm somebody. Like, that there's no other way to be wealthy. And we are conditioned to believe that wealth equal dollars, or whatever your currency is. That's the definition, and then all the stuff that dollars can bring. And so no wonder we're all acting like this, right? No wonder we're all afraid. We're all insecure. While we've got a liquor cabinet, why? Because that's what we're shown all the time. Thousands and thousands, if not millions of impressions over our lifetime of that same scenario.
What are we seeing in your media company? I want to sign up for that.
It's so the thing is, it's like entertainment again, that it looks at what's truly going on in society. You're still living your life, you're still having experiences, but there are other ways to deal with it and ultimately transform it. And then it's also about the true human potential, like how powerful you are as beings. And you don't have to deteriorate or, de-evolve into these lower states of being all the time. That, yes, those are possibilities, and that's what we've done for generations and decades and centuries. But does it have to be that way? Is that the only way through it? Is that the only way to, quote unquote, be successful?
It's really funny that you said that. I just want to throw something at you, so you're going to appreciate this. Just last week, I did a mini podcast because I do my own like 10 minutes or so, words from Monique, and I call it Consider the Possibilities. Okay. Because the podcast is called Possibility. Anyway.
I've seen it.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. So I said, I was talking about success is not binary. And I love this conversation because there are a lot of humans on the planet walking around with the notion that if you're successful, I'm a failure. Your success is my failure. If she is successful, that somehow takes away from what my possibilities are. And I think this thing is such bullshit. It's like, why can you not get into a headspace where there's enough for everyone? I come from abundance, right? So like, I'm all about like, let's make it happen. Let's just do it. We'll step into it. It's fine. Like, it's just going to work out. And just because I'm happy, that doesn't mean that you need to be sad, or because I'm successful, you need to be a failure.
Right. I mean, to me, it goes back to some very core tenets of energy. And this may be counterintuitive, but if I said to you, Monique, if the sun is shining on you, then it can't shine on me. There's not enough sunlight or energy. If you're feeling a cool breeze, then I can't, the electricity that's in the clouds, it's in the ethers. If you receive, a lot of power and energy, then I somehow receive less. Then there's not enough for me. That is what our media puts in our brains, and we consume it day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, lifetime after lifetime. That's what we're consuming. And then we wonder why we're ill and afraid and insecure.
Right. You want people to consume things that will alter the wiring.
Exactly. It's like a new perspective. And we see a little bit of it, but it's not the main stream, right? It's not like most things it's all about destruction. A lot of stuff, it's like these big fights. It's always like these tensions where we just bring out bigger and bigger guns and machines and planes, and we just destroy. And I said, why is everything so destructive? And so that's what we think. We think that this is what it's going to lead to. Like this is the end result. It's terror, it's destruction, it's fear, it's insecurity, it's lack of resources, it's this scarcity mentality. And then we wonder why we act the way that we act in life. It's a question about, does life imitate art, or is art imitating life? That question, I think it's both.
So I, in an effort to kind of get people to the place of what you want them to consider, at the end of this discussion, they're looking at you going, well, she's an incredibly accomplished human and clearly talented, and what do you want them to be thinking about after they turn off this podcast?
I want them to be thinking about what's really going on inside of them, like tuning into that. Because I believe at the end of the day, when we come to the realization that we are creators, innately creators, that then it is only then that we take responsibility for what we are creating. And so really tune into what is going on inside of you. And then when we do that, we can begin to recognize cycles and patterns, because we notice there's a trigger that happens. And then guess what? I feel a certain way. It's like it's usually not a feeling you've never felt before. You're like, here it is again. And then you see this, and then you imagine that I remember when I felt and I saw this trigger before, this is what happened. And then you fear that it's going to happen again. So those fears and insecurities, they raise up again. And then what? The cycle repeats again because we don't realize how powerful we are as creators. We don't realize the power of our thoughts, so that carries a vibration and energy. We don't recognize the power of our language, the words that we speak. We can see the waves of words. We can see that when we're looking at audio. That's a vibration, that's energy, that's a frequency that we're emitting when we speak. So what vibration, what signal are you speaking at? And I like to think of it like on a radio dial. And so if I have an analog dial and I've got 90.1 and I've got 107.9, and where am I broadcasting? Where is because all those signals are always blaring, right? And then it's like, what are you tuning into? Because you have to turn that down. There's static, then you're, it's crisp because I'm tuning it into a signal. And so what vibration, what is your signal? What are you broadcasting to the world, to your family, to yourself? And then it goes back down to the feelings. Yeah, the feelings of you. Like, what am I feeling truly in my heart? Because what we do is we like to fake it till we make it. We'll feel one way, but we think or we speak something very different. And so this falls it's very, I believe, tied with our money story. I say, I want more money. I want to be successful, whatever that means for you. I want this, I want that. But in the soul of you, you feel unworthy. You feel insecure. You don't feel good enough. You feel afraid. You have all these feelings. So I'm saying one thing, but I feel something very different. And that is a disconnect. That energy is a disconnect.
There's an expression that I learned when I was little, and it was mean what you say and say what you mean, so that
exactly, that there's an alignment. Well, just think about this, about say what you mean and mean what you say. I love that you've brought that up. So the idea is that when I say what I mean and I mean what I say, it amplifies my signal, right? Because just think of two frequencies, the one that I speak and then the one that I feel, right? And so if they're both high frequencies, then when I add, those are additive. So then I get a much higher signal. And then the idea is that when I say what I mean, when I say, that's what's going to happen, because we believe that there is this transfer that I'm going to bring that into, I'm going to attract that. Now, just think of the other way. When I say one thing, let's say I say, oh yeah, I'm good enough. I'm this and that enough. Yeah, I'm going to do this. And then I feel like I'm a loser. I feel so those two signals, when they come, they will cancel out to zero, because you got two opposite, and we hear this, like positive and a negative will cancel themselves out. And so that we don't realize that what we speak, what we think, what we feel, particularly what we feel, is the language of the universe. That's the signal, if you will. That's what we broadcast out to that universal substrate of creation. And so are we sending out a big amplified signal because what we say, what we believe, what we want, what we feel are amplified high frequency signals? Or are we having these canceled out requests because I say one thing, I believe one thing, but I feel something very different? And that is what we're sending out to that universal substrate of creation, what allows things to precipitate down into the third dimension to what we call become real, right? It's like that my ideas, they're things, but then what we need to do in this physical world, because we're in a third dimensional physical world, is how do I make it real? Like, how do I bring that? I have an idea for a book. How do I make it a book? And it's like something that's physical. And so that is part of it.
My goodness, we're going to need three sessions with you, because this is, I have angst. I have, no, the word in French, I can't say it. I don't want the sessions to end, but I have to, conclude it. And I'm so sad, but, so listeners, this has been a great masterclass. Think about this, the journey about, your words and your feelings and your energetic, your decisions and all of those things that have to align for you to really operate at a high frequency and a high vibrational state. I always feel, you can feel people's energy. You can somebody walks into a room, they get either positive or negative. I get a lot of that, like, oh, you have such great energy, and you don't know what to make of it or who I am or what I'm about, but I don't show up as a threat. I show up as like, right? So that's what I think you're espousing. And it's just really super cool to have somebody with a medical background as deep and as rich as yours come to this place and share this with us. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to put some notes in the comments in the show notes for people to get in touch with you should they want to. This is a woman that you want to talk to. If there's anything that's not in alignment for you, she will find it with you. Okay, so we're going to share Dr. Nicholas's contact information. Say that fast 3 times. And then see where else we can connect with you. And again, her money consciousness work is really pretty cool. The overcoming generational poverty work is very, very cool. So check out Dr. Susan Nicholas. Thank you for being here. Goodbye, everybody. Tune in next time. Thank you so much for listening to Possibilities with Monique de Maio, where we unpack life as a female mover and shaker. If you like the show, please consider liking it, or better still, subscribing to it and leaving us a rating. It truly does help. Also, you can pick up my book, The 7 Secrets to Creating a Life You Love, a practical guide for women in leadership. You can find the book, other episodes of this podcast, and how to stay in touch at moniquedemaio.com. DEMAIO. I look forward to seeing you again soon. With gratitude, Monique.